All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat,
I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
and today we are going to be talking about our impressions with Dragon Quest XI on the Switch. We gave our impressions of the demo before, but that was kind of early impressions. This is still going to be mostly early impressions. However, we got to play the 2D version, which is going to be a little bit different from our experience with the 3D version, but we'll talk about the 3D version as well. And then after that, we're going to get into the RPGs that are coming out in October. So there's actually quite a few coming out, so we're excited to talk about that. And then we're going to get into the Final Fantasy VII Box Art Controversy, where they're complaining that it doesn't say Part 1 on the box art, even though the box art looks like it's from the original game. And then we have some questions at the end from Discord, basically asking us what are some of the games that we were disappointed by, that we had such high expectations for, but we were disappointed. And then vice versa, what were some games that we didn't really expect much out of, but later they ended up being pretty good. So that's the topics for this week's podcast. But before we get into all that, I just want to remind everyone that we are partners with RPGFan.com. Now, if you go to RPGFan.com, you're going to see that they have lots and lots of RPG news. They have game reviews. They have RPG soundtrack reviews. They have other RPG podcasts. We're listed on there as well now. But they have Random Encounter, which is twice a month. That's like RPG news, in-depth discussions, stuff like that. And then Retro Encounter is a weekly book club style podcast where they talk about specific retro RPGs for an entire month while they replay them. And so make sure you go there and check it out. They also have daily Twitch streams and YouTube reviews and stuff like that. We'll leave a link in our description if you're curious and want to check out their website. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and just jump into our Dragon Quest XI impressions discussion real quick. Sorry, I forgot to say. Last week I said that I would give you all my impressions this week on Link's Awakening. I played 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half of the game. I liked it. I feel like I need to play more of it to actually give like a more substantive thoughts on the game. But in a nutshell, I liked it. So maybe next week I can give you all some more thoughts on that. But let's go ahead and jump into our Dragon Quest XI impressions. Eric's going to go ahead and just give us a quick synopsis of what's changed with this version, and then we'll give our thoughts on the game. So, Eric?
Well, first off, love it. I just have to say it right off the bat. But but yeah, there is a lot of changes to this version that really makes it the definitive version. That definitely outbeats like any small graphical improvements that the PS4 and the PC have comparatively. But like this game obviously has like the new 2D mode added in, which you can play the entire game in 2D mode. Now, granted, there is a little small moments where you have to play certain things in 3D, like the horse races in the game. You still have to do it in 3D.
I haven't gotten to that point. Yeah.
And vice versa. There are only some things you can do in the 2D version, like the newly added side quest where you take on quests from 10 different Dragon Quest games. You go to this place called like TikTok something, and rather than in the 3D version or the 2D version, you have to do it in 2D. These particular quests, but you enter the world of one of these books, and to give like an example, it's not really a spoiler, but you can find a passcode that lets you go to the Dragon Quest 3 world, and it actually takes you way in the past before the hero of that game is even born, and you have to find the hero's mother, this item like slash spell thing to get people off her back about marrying his father Ortega. So there's cool quests like that. they go across. And if you're like a Dragon Quest fan, like these are like just like real nostalgia um, add-ins. But I kind of have a list here overall. It was kind of from the wiki site mostly, just to make sure I have everything in line. But essentially, for differences, um, obviously, like I said, there's the 3D and 2D mode. Now, actually, before I say that, the one thing I do want to say about that is it's not completely interchangeable, the 3D and the 2D.
Yeah.
If you play in one and you want to get, if you want to switch to the other, you can, but you have to go to a church or a campfire site, and you actually have to go back to the last major part of the story, which isn't like hours and hours back, but it may set you back like maybe at worst an hour or two into the game. But the good thing is that your levels and equipment carry over. So that is the one small price if you really wanted to like just jump into one version or the other. Myself personally, I think you should just play through one version the whole way and then play the other version the whole way. Also, because I think it's kind of like too much of a hassle
I
to
kind
be consistently switching between the two.
Yeah, I kind of feel I agree with that. I think that you should definitely I think if you're going to play this game the first time, I do feel like I feel like I have to say play it in the 3D version. That's just my opinion. Just play that version so you get the full experience with all the cutscenes and the voice acting and everything like that, and you know you can see this world fully developed. And I feel like the 2D version is awesome, but I feel like it's definitely the way I want to play it in the future. But I feel like that's for like my second time around to make it feel different or new. You know?
Yeah. Um, Also, one of the more basic ones. Yeah, there's an orchestrated soundtrack this time. You can switch between the original soundtrack and the orchestrated version now. Rather, if you're in 2D or 3D, they're both available in both versions. Um, Yeah, it does sound really good. The orchestrated version. I like both, but like this is obviously this is my second playthrough, and doing 2D for the first time, so I do want to hear like the different track this time. Both
Yeah.
are good, but obviously like orchestrated is more there.
Right. Right.
You can also for the 3D version, you can switch um, to the Japanese version voice cutscenes. And that's interesting because when Japan first released Dragon Quest XI, they didn't have any voice acting, and it was the West that first got form of voice acting for the game. Then Japan brought their definitive version out, Dragon Quest S. And they added Japanese voice acting to theirs, and you can have that version on yours also if you don't care for the English voice acting. There's the Japanese one right there. The other one's on top of my head. Um, I guess I should just go ahead and read the list now instead of trying to use my head.
Right.
But the first bubble is party interaction. There is additional party chat dialogue. So like you can press like in 2D mode in particular, you can press B and like characters have a lot more dialogue, help guide you in the right direction, or give you like a little lore info. Um, those are really nice. Next one's in battle speech bubbles for more party chat. I think that's more exclusive to the 3D version and see that in the 2D version.
Yeah.
Um, the ability to silence a protagonist's idle sounds, such as yawns and battle cries. I guess
I did
some
see
people had
that.
a problem with that.
Yeah. The really devout fans there, they didn't even want the character to make any noise at all. Totally silent
Truly
protagonist.
silent, yeah.
Party members will follow behind the luminary as in 2D titles. So like I don't think they like just like follow in a line behind you. I think they like wander around or like around where you are. Kind of like similar to like FF15 or FF13 in a way,
Hmm.
like how they're scattered about. Um, Party members will move on their own while in battle, adjusting to the conditions of conflict for more player immersion. This is only an aesthetic adjustment and does not affect gameplay. So other characters will just be like moving around and doing their own thing while you're moving the character that his turn. Now, that's an option also, if I remember in the original game. I'm sure it's in this one too for the 3D version. That you can either have it like more like Dragon Quest 8, where they're all like in the line and they do their move and then go back to where they are instead of like moving around in the arena. So if you kind of like the more Dragon Quest 8 approach, that's an option also for you. Next bubble is mini game refinements. Um, they added a new photograph mode that's reminiscent of Cameron's Codex, which I think is from a earlier Dragon Quest. The horse racing minigame has been fine tuned. The crossbow minigame has been fine tuned. Um, they've increased the amount of monsters to ride, including a golem, a great saber cat, and a slime knight. Riding monsters can now be attacked for experience points and gold. Um, a dedicated musical theme will play when riding the Great Saber Cat. Um, then the next bubble is quality of life adjustments. Improved camera controls in the 3D mode. The ability to dash in the overworld has been added for the Japanese version.
Huh.
Uh, Forging is now available at all times. Yes, that is an awesome feature. I can go into a little detail on that. So, in the original game, you could add campsites, um, or any special location, you could use a forge
Yeah.
to get better equipment.
I almost called it
Now,
I almost called it the mini I was almost thinking the mini reactor, but so wait, you can use that at other areas besides campsites now? Because I
you can
thought
use
I
it. You can use it pretty much anywhere now.
I thought I read somewhere that I think Eric, like the character Eric, told me that, and then he said like, "Oh, you just have to reach into your bag."
Yep.
And I was like trying to figure out where on the menu that was, and I said, "Wow, whatever." I played 100 and something hours going to campsites, so I'm just going to keep doing that. But how do you access it? Am I just missing it?
You just go into important items in your bag, and it's right there. You click on it, and you go right in.
Huh.
And here's the best part about it. Now, if you don't have the materials to make the weapon, you can actually buy in the forge menu those last items you need. It costs a lot of money to get the crafting items, but that is an option if you don't want to go out and find it. You can buy. It'll find what materials you need to make that weapon,
Hmm.
and it will uh like you buy it, and then the items become available, and then you can make the crafted item.
See, that's pretty cool. I mean, one of my favorite things about this game that I got really into was the crafting system and just being able to improve my equipment and give it like a +2 or +3 or whatever, or it's extra status effects like immune to poison or whatever the case may be. And that was a lot of fun. But I don't know, how do you feel about being able to just purchase these as opposed to having to go hunt and find the items? Because
If anything, it makes gold more relevant
yeah, I'm in the middle
because
on it. I'm in the middle on it, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, like craft, like there's a big incentive to craft in the game, and that is like you'll always have a much more powerful equipment than you would with just going to shops and buying stuff.
Right.
So when you do this, it's like it saves you some time by having to backtrack, trying to find these items, and it kind of dissuades people from wanting to use the crafting system. Now that you have this feature in, it does motivate people more to take advantage of the crafting system. And the good trade off is that it costs a lot more gold to pull this stuff off than it is like buying stuff from shops a lot of times, unless you already have the items in your possession.
Right, so if you just wanna pay to get these items, it's still gonna take some time because you're gonna have to grind or you're gonna have to sacrifice whatever gold you've gotten from the last dungeon in order to, get whatever crafting item you need. There's a payoff.
Yeah, it's not so bad in the beginning, but I'm already starting to notice now. that like stuff is getting like dramatically more expensive
Hmm.
uh, without finding the items. So it does look like there will be a point where it gets so expensive that you either want to just go find the item instead of putting in all that gold.
Yeah.
But it is a good trade off, I think.
Interesting.
Um, this is a good one here.
Okay.
Cutscenes may now be skipped immediately. If I remember correctly, in the previous game, you had to like keep hitting the button over and over to get the scenario over with. Like if you got a game over
Right.
and you wanted to go back, like you had to like scroll through all the text, if I remember correctly. So this now you can just skip it entirely and just go straight to the boss fight.
Huh. Well, I never lost a single battle, so I never got to experience that.
Hmm.
I'm just kidding. I did. Yeah, some of the
Um,
post game content gave me a run for my money, so that's definitely
this,
a good feature because it's the being not being able to skip the cutscene or making it kind of a pain is annoying because even if it's a great cutscene, having to watch the same one over and over again, it can get really old.
oh
So
yeah, especially if there's a boss you can't beat.
right,
Now this is another nice, I'm sorry, addition. Also, is and I wish this was in the original game. Sorry, someone keeps trying to call me. Uh, um, what next thing is additional appearance changing equipment. Uh, in the original game, you could put different looking equipment on your character. Not all armor, but some armor did change your looks. But you couldn't do like any type of glamour system. Like you couldn't keep that armor set look on you. You had to take it off and use something else, or it's an armor set you didn't want on you, like that hat nose, that Sylvando one.
yeah, the
He
one
knows
where
what I'm talking about.
yeah, it's like literally, and this I don't consider this a spoiler, but it's like a flower costume where like it's very flamboyant and like it's a giant flower thing you wear around your waist, and whenever you're wearing it, like your character like pushes his hips back and forth and like his hands up in the air waving. It's very very flamboyant and very crazy. And the idea is you're supposed to go around the world and bring happiness to people, right? Except that was the best armor in the game for like 5 or 6 hours, at least during my playthrough. So, like, I was just like, dude, I cannot wait to get rid of this armor. But every time I'd go to get new armor, there would be at the shop, there'd be like not quite as good as the one I had on. I'd be like, God, I have to keep wearing this because it's funny, but you know, you're trying to take it seriously, and the character's like got this giant flower around his waist. And
Yeah.
all in all, it was a good memory, but it's nice that you don't have to do that if you don't want to.
Yeah. The one thing is though that you can't do this in 2D mode. It's a 3D mode only feature, being able to change your appearance.
Mm.
So I believe you can still alter the way you look in 2D, but you can't do the uh, glamour.
So wait, I haven't noticed that. Then you think that you'll be able to change the way your sprite looks
There has been times where your character sprite has changed
based on the story? Yeah.
based on the story. I haven't gotten any armor yet that completely changes my look yet.
Mm.
So I don't know. I think you have to have the full set on for it to
That
count.
yeah, that makes sense. Maybe some like high end, like end of game armor or something like that, that like was really difficult to get. Maybe.
Mhm.
All right.
Let's see here. Um, let's see here. Next one. Um, the equipment set based on the protagonist of the eighth game that was added in international release has been added for the Japanese version. Yeah, so if you're a Japanese player, the West got the Dragon Quest VIII outfit because that's like the only real popular one for people in the West. So obviously that costume is coming in. But there is that. There is a special outfit made for the character Eric, designed by mangaka. I guess like manga artist hero Mashima from Fairy Tail. series. I guess there's a new armor for him. I haven't seen anything like that yet. That's probably a more in-game item.
Yeah.
Then uh now to the scenario editions, there was the one that I just talked about where you visit the previous Dragon Quest worlds and do quests through them. That's one of the big ones. Another big one is it's a slight spoiler, so I'll try to keep it spoiler free as possible. But there is an extensive side quest involving Hendrik and Jasper, two characters from the game. That is one of my criticisms of the original Dragon Quest 11, that I didn't feel like these two characters' relationship were explored enough. And
Right.
according to this, they added in a what it's saying here, an extensive side quest involving these two characters. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that and getting to know both of them more. And there's also a new scenario added. This isn't so much a spoiler. Is a new character, Madame Cherie, has been added. She's a professor at the L'Académie de Notre Mater, Les Medales. I tried my best to pronounce that.
Sounds spot on to me.
And I think it's another series. I haven't gotten there myself either. I'll be glad to talk about it once I get further enough to that point. But I think that's another series of quests uh, added to the game. I don't know if there's any strong story significance or if she gives like anything good, like metal related.
Right.
But um, that's another major scenario addition. That's the most I was able to find on the biggest differences. I think there's a lot more, uh, like small quality of life stuff for sure. I haven't really seen all of them yet, and this is the most info I could find resource wise. But if anyone finds anything else that's real cool in the game that we missed out on, uh, feel free to use it in the comments, and we will. That'd be great help for anyone who's thinking about purchase for this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Very cool. Yeah, I mean, this game is like this version of the game. It's definitely got like a lot of new content in the game itself, right? So it's not a complete just like, oh, they just ported it and then, like charge $60. They added a lot of new content to it. And obviously, like you said, the 16-bit mode is probably one of the biggest draws, but there's other scenario story content that's been added in to kind of flesh the story out. But to me, playing this Switch version, because I own the PS4 version, I think the only way that I'm really going to play this game on the Switch, most of the time, anyways, is the 2D version. Because to me, this is all about being on the go, right? And that 2D version is just awesome. Like I really like the 2D version a lot. And the 3D version, this isn't a bad way to play the 3D version, but it just looks muddy compared to what I remember in my head from playing it on my PS4 Pro. And that's not necessarily. I think it looks good for the fact that they got it to run on the Switch. It's not like it's a crappy port or a lazy port. They've certainly put a
It's
lot of work.
actually running on a completely different engine.
Yeah, so they put a lot of work into it. So I don't want to give anyone the impression that I think they you know, cheesed it. Like they clearly put a lot of work into it. It's just it's not on as powerful of hardware, so it's just not going to look as good. So, I mean, to me, what's exciting for me is being able to play the 2D version of this because so far, like I've really enjoyed it. I'm surprised how much I've enjoyed it. Even the orchestra, I complained last time that you know they're not putting this orchestrated version in the PS4 version at least yet. That it's stuck on the Switch version. I still am a little irritated by that, but man, this orchestrated version sounds just awesome. I'm with you. I liked the MIDI version. I because that was very nostalgic for me. But this orchestrated version, it like some of the tracks just really come alive that it wasn't quite as apparent before. So I'm really digging this version. I'm still a little irritated that we don't get all this new content at least yet in the PS4 version. But with that criticism aside, this is a really cool way to play the game.
There like the graphical difference between the PS4 PC version and the Nintendo Switch version, I think is so negligible that I wouldn't even worry about it. On top of
Uh,
that,
I don't know.
like all the content that this definitive version has, like I could not recommend the other versions now
See,
until they release like the S version for PS4 and PC. Then I can say, portability versus high-end graphical experience
yeah.
is what
I
I would say. But right now it doesn't. So the Switch version is still the best version to get right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to put like a pros and cons chart, like, okay, here's the pluses, here's the minuses, I think that the Switch version is going to come out on top for all the reasons we just discussed, like all the new content that's in it. But to me, like when I play the 3D version, I can tell the difference. Like, I mean, obviously you can too, Eric. I'm not saying you can't, but uh I mean, there's a lot of pop in, there's a lot of like NPC faces that are just blurry until you get like right up in front of them and it's just obviously not going to be as sharp looking. I mean, the cutscenes still look amazing on the Switch, and I don't think that's surprising at all, but I can tell a difference. But it's not like you said, it's not astronomical. It's not going to be as obvious when you look at, for example, The Witcher 3 coming to the Switch. If you look at that version of the game, and then you look at like the PS4 version, like there's a very clear difference, right? It's not that obvious, but you can definitely tell. I think if you put the three videos on a screen, like I would easily be able to point out which one's the Switch version. So it's just a minor gripe, you know. I think if this was your first time playing the game and you played the 3D version, like you probably would not know any better, you know? So
Now the 2D version.
ooh, that's the best
Yeah.
version to play, yeah.
Oh man. If you're a second time person thinking about getting this, like the 2D version, I think it's worth going through the whole game again. Because oh man, it is gorgeous. The pixel art is just absolutely downright gorgeous. I have no complaints about it.
Dude,
Uh,
they did a good job, like, I thought, "Okay, this is a gimmick, they're gonna, like, half it, like, just cheese it and do, like a low budget job," and for the most part, like, it's, like, legitly, like, they went out and they fully pixelated everything, and, like, it's not at all like a just a rush job, like, they literally like, this could be a version of the game that came out on the Super Nintendo. I mean, I think that some of the story sequences are not quite as well executed. Like, for example, when Gemma's hanging off the cliff, they just put her model on the side of the cliff, and I'm like, "Okay, you coulda used a different sprite for that," but
yeah,
for
the
the
cinematography is essentially gone, but
I mean, other than that, like, man, this thing looks like it's so cool to play it like this, and, like, it feels like a new game, but anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the cinematography is essentially gone. Like there's a scene where you remember in the 3D version, like when you're going through the portal for the first time, then like Hendrik and his army catch up with you,
Yeah.
and like you're riding on horses, and like he uses a crossbow on one of your horses, and you're just running to that portal,
Mhm.
and like there's a full big cinematic scene. Like all that is not there. Like you see Hendrik and his men not even on horses, and like you're not on horses either, and you're just running away, and you just quickly go in the portal thing. So like I kind of feel like the 2D version is like kind of meant to be played the second time.
Right.
Unless like you're a real classic retro nut who like only likes his games in 16-bit mode. I would, if you've never played a Dragon Quest 11 game before, I would still recommend playing the 3D version. And
Yeah.
then when you want to give it a second round, I would play it in the 2D mode just to like it does feel like a whole different game in itself, even though it has the same story. Um,
Well, let me ask let
but a
me
lot of those story beats are kind of like toned down, obviously, because
yeah,
they're working on a 16-bit esque limitation with these
right,
character sprites.
right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's little story moments that aren't quite as big on the 2D version. You know, another one that comes to mind is when the hero and Eric jump off that cliff.
Yeah.
Like in the main game, that's like a great cutscene, but in this version, there's just this tiny waterfall next to it, and like the the sprites just take like a little step off the cliff and then they just kind of like float down. And I'm like, oh, you guys could have done something else there, but maybe some like mode 7 or something like that would have been cool. But I mean, like as far as like the main core game goes, like this is really cool to play it on this version. Like it's fully developed. So I really like that. But Eric, let me ask you, because this is an observation I made. Like, do you find that you're progressing through the game faster in the 2D mode? Because I
Yes.
think, yeah, because I think I've noticed like certain dungeons and obviously the world map, being able to travel between cities on the world map, you kind of have that. Like, it's kind of like when people talk about the Final Fantasy VII remake, when you know, in the original game, when you leave Midgar and you get to the next city, it's like a 10-second walk, but that's really supposed to be like miles, right? You
Mhm.
kind of have that effect with this version where it's the 2D version, there's this city and it's like 20 seconds north, but in the 3D
Right.
version, it's like this like arduous journey. And I don't mind it at all. I kind of like this quicker pace. It makes it, I don't know, it doesn't take away from the game, but it
Yeah, on top of that, battles are much faster because they're in random encounter. That's the trade-off they did with that, is they brought random encounters back,
mhm.
but in turn, the battles are much, much faster. I would say like 3 times faster than a normal battle
Mhm.
in the 3D game. So that's another factor that makes it feel a lot faster. Like, I think where I am right now, where it's like the 12-hour mark, I think would have been like a 17-hour or so mark. Uh, I think it's, very dramatic, but then again, I kind of always did, like, the side quests and everything. I'm kind of, saving side quests more to the side, but I have been doing the, classic Dragon Quest quests, uh, on those. So, it has been a little bit of a quicker experience because of that, but I'm obviously gonna go back and do everything because
Right.
I want 100% this one also. The
Yeah.
2D version is just so great, so fun. It feels so smooth as an experience that, like, this could be if they release this, instead of the full 3D game, like, I would still consider this, like, a legit mainline Dragon Quest game.
Yeah, it's definitely like they did not cheese it like I said before. Like they put some time into it. You know, they actually fleshed the world out and it's a full scale 2D game. It's not like a little gimmick where it's like 8 hours, a condensed version. Kind of like, you know, with the Final Fantasy 15 like demake they did where it was supposed to be like PlayStation graphics, but it was chibi characters. That version I've only played a little bit of it, but I know Eric, you beat the whole game. But from what you were telling us, it was kind of like a much more structured and streamlined version of the game, a much quicker experience. And I kind of expected that with this version. And yeah, it's traversing and stuff is a little bit faster, but by and far, it's a fully fleshed out 2D version of the game. It's not by any means like a just like a gimmick here, cash grab. It's actually they actually put some heart into this.
The original Dragon Quest XI in 3D, if you go through everything, I think it's, like, about an 80-hour campaign.
Right.
I have a feeling this version is probably gonna if you get to the end, to the 3rd act,
Hmm.
at the end of the 3rd act, I think it'll probably be a little over 60, not
Yeah,
including the side quests.
which is nothing to shy away at. And I think that just comes down to the fact that, you know, a stairwell is now like 4 tiles instead of, you know, like an actual incline. Like there's little things like that that are going to be sped up, but it's not less content. It doesn't feel less, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I-
Yeah, I will say I'm all for demakes. Um, as much as I don't like Final Fantasy 15, and I played the Pocket Edition, I still appreciate what it is. I feel like this is like a good compromise for like people who kind of just want a traditional game. Like, I hope for Final Fantasy 16 they do this. I hope they make like the full 3D game and then they have some other team behind them make like a demake version of it
That that would be sweet.
and have it maybe like Final Fantasy 6 character sprites and
Yeah.
just and traditional like turn-based battles and like let the 3D game be like the big full action spectacular thing, whatever they want to do
Mhm.
this time or something, and just make like that 2D version. that like you can play like on the Switch or maybe on your phone or something. You know, they
Yeah.
love putting stuff on phones. And I want, same thing with Dragon Quest. I think Dragon Quest started something really cool, and I think if they have the resources and time, game company, I think they should do stuff like that.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing because I totally get that this is straight nostalgia. This is absolutely just appealing to like the rose colored glasses on my face, right? Like this is exactly what I want, and I'm totally willing to accept. Like I'm a little biased, whatever, but when I play this version of the game, even though I already know the story, like I'm just excited. Like it just makes me want to play it more and like makes me want to go check out a scene I haven't seen in this version before, but I remember it in 3D and just see how it plays and also just even things like grinding and stuff is just a lot of fun. Like it just makes me feel like I'm like playing a Super Nintendo game. So I'm all about it. Like this is a really cool version to play. So would you recommend $60 to someone? Well, let's do this in two camps. Let's say someone who already owns the PS4 and PC version. Would you recommend $60 buy this on the Switch or wait? Possibly it'll come out later. And then let's say somebody brand new. Would you recommend that they spend $60 or would you recommend they wait? Possibly it'll come out on the PS4 or maybe the price will just drop. What
A
do
new
you?
player, absolutely worth $60 and more. That is a full game. Like if you play like the 3D version first, you're going to get 80 to 100 hours out of the game, and none of it is boring. Like I don't ever feel like I get bored playing Dragon Quest 11
Yeah. And
ever.
the performance was actually pretty reasonable on the Switch also. It wasn't like it didn't feel like it like really like lagged or anything. So yeah, you're getting a little bit of a downgrade in the visuals, but performance wise, like it's still pretty smooth, I think.
There's a lot more content in this to play with.
Yeah.
Uh, so that kind of already makes it like what it says, the definitive version in itself. If you're someone who has to have high graphical fidelity, then you can wait to see if they make a PS4 PC version, but there is no guarantee. They've not announced it. They haven't even announced one for Japan.
It's so
So
it's so crazy if they don't though. Like I get it. Like okay, re-releases have happened before. They've had exclusive content in it, but usually it's after like a very long time. I mean, it seems so weird to me that they wouldn't at least put the new story stuff in the PS4 and PC version down the road. It just seems crazy to me.
it's probably more development time, and they wanted to get the Switch version out.
Yeah,
On top of that, they put it in a whole new engine. These definitive features. So
yeah,
I think there's probably some strong, communication issues between the two. In terms of a second time player, it depends. Um, if you really, if the 2D version fascinates you, it's a fantastic experience in itself from what I've played so far. So if you have the urge to play the game again a second time, uh, like you are definitely getting bang out of your buck for it because
yeah,
you're essentially getting the whole game again, but in a whole different format. So
yeah,
you get that, and on top of that, additional content which you can go back to the 3D version for and look at it through the 3D version. Like I'm kind of debating on doing that. I don't know yet. Like the additional content in the game, I might jump back to the 3D, like go to end game and then like pop back to 3D and do these new quests through that.
yeah. I could see
Uh,
me going that route because just because I have played a 3D version, like we've talked about, occasionally there'll be those story sequences that are not quite as effective as they are in the 3D version, just because of like obviously the amount of cinematography they can do in the 3D version. It's hard to compete with that, right? Despite the fact that the 2D version has its own charm. But I could see me playing new content, new side quests, new story content. I could see me switching over to the 3D version because I just think that I just want to see how it is in that version as opposed to the
mhm.
2D version.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a worthy purchase either for both audiences.
You know,
I can't recommend it enough. Dragon Quest is I mean, I might be a little biased because Dragon Quest is my favorite RPG series, but which is strange because we talk about Final Fantasy way more in Dragon Quest, but that's probably because Dragon Quest doesn't have as much things to complain about than Final Fantasy does. So
Yeah. Stan, when you gonna buy Dragon Quest 11?
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like I should buy this game, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
why aren't you going out buying it right now?
Yeah, I need to get on that.
Yeah, man.
Unfortunately, bills were due this week, so
Ah,
didn't quite have the money to pick it up, but I definitely will eventually.
sorry. Usually
Uh,
Hori will come knocking sooner or
yeah.
later. All right. Well,
Just knock the door down. It's like, you Westerners like my games yet?
Yeah, it sounds like if nothing else, we really want this to sell well because then in the future, Square might do this with their other games, right? Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy or otherwise, right? They
yeah.
Mhm.
might they might think about adding 2D versions of future games.
At the
Would be
very
great.
at the very least, well, I don't want to say at the very least because this would actually be more work, but I mean, this made me feel like, okay, like let's keep having versions like this 2D versions of the game to appeal to other crowds, but also I really want them to try to remake a game in the Octopath Traveler style. I know everyone's talked about Final Fantasy 6, but I could see all sorts of just future games being made in that style also because that's kind of got a good blend of retro
Hmm.
styled games. It feels retro, but it's still very modern in a way. So I could go for that too.
Yeah, that would also be a very good way to kind of have your cake and eat it too with like action and turn based, right? Because they want Final Fantasy to be more of like an action style combat ever since
Yeah.
even FF12, you could say. It's
Hmm.
gone away from the traditional turn based and into more of like a real time combat system. So you could have that in the 3D version of the game, but then if there's a 2D version, like an Octopath version, then you could easily make that like a turn-based combat, right?
That's a
That might actually be less effort than trying to mimic an action system from a 3D game
yeah.
into a 2D aesthetic, right? It might just be easier if
It's a
you're going
good
to make
point.
that 2D version, just make it a turn-based version of the battle system.
That's a really good point. Like like you could just go full action and just be like, well, yeah, but we still have literally an ATB system, like a
Hmm.
turn-based ATB system here. You
Yeah, that'd be
know,
awesome. Like, I'd go back and play like FF12 and 13 and 15 in like a Octopath style version of the game with the characters 2D sprites and turn-based battle systems for all three of those. That would be
I think
sweet.
if Octopath Traveler is anything, that pixel art games still sell. There is
Hmm.
still a major audience for it. I know Square Enix wants to tap into that new audience that it's still more action or more action oriented now. And I understand to an extent about that, but like you still a good portion of your fan base is still into your classic titles.
right?
Yeah.
So like it's so with like a demake, it's like why not both?
The only problem is there's not 10 million of those classic fans. At least they don't think so, right? Which is why they are trying to expand the audience because they put so much money into those Final Fantasy games that they have absurd sales targets for them.
I would have to look at sales charts, but I think Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition did really well,
Mm.
at least on mobile. I don't think so much Switch, but I think it did well on mobile.
Right. See, but like like this is the type of extra content they can make that I'm okay with. Like in this day and age, games come out and then they'll have DLC, right? And a lot of times or occasionally like in 15's case, Final Fantasy 15, we criticized it because like it was just DLC that should have been in the main game. It felt like it should have been in the main game. But
Hmm.
you could take those resources that you made for that DLC, still make that story. I'm not saying remove the story, but make a different version of the game like they did here. And it's literally the same game, but a different way to play it, different way to experience it. And like you're effectively still, they could sell that on its side as DLC. And effectively, like you're literally selling us the same exact concept, but it's something totally different, right? It's something that like is
Mhm.
doesn't feel like I'm missing out. Like it's just a different way to experience the same thing. I mean, that's they can still do this stuff. They just have to be a little bit smarter about it. And I think this is definitely the way to go.
Honestly, I don't care if they never add the DLC to the demake versions
Oh,
because
Final Fantasy
just
15.
like I don't think it'll be needed for that. I think that's just something that's probably exclusive to um like the full 3D
Hmm.
version, main title games.
Yeah,
Like just having the as long as it's a full story, as long as it's not stuff taken out of the game like FF15 obviously was and didn't plan their story and their game very well in general. We've talked about that a million times, but anyways, or I wouldn't mind just like the demake just being a standalone game. Doesn't need a additional DLC. Just let it be what it is. If you want these additional stories, play the main $60 title
hmm,
on your
yeah,
PS5.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm fine with that too. I mean, or just don't do all that extra stuff and have the extra thing be the demake. I'm cool with that too. So, but
You forget.
well,
Come on.
I know. I will buy all the demakes every time.
Hmm.
I will spend money. They can just make money off me. People like me. But anyways, so that's our thoughts thus far on the Dragon Quest XI Switch version. One thing I forgot to bring up, Eric, I'm curious what you thought. I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I wish there was a way for me to turn on the voice acting during the 2D version. How do you feel about that?
Indifferent because some the voice acting needs to be complemented by the cinematography also, and I feel like sometimes the 2D version would not be able to pull that off.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So it could feel disjointing sometimes, if anything.
Yeah.
The one parts that do feel weird is um, the CG scenes that are still 3D.
Yes, like they're still like occasionally they will still have like full CG scenes. It's really weird which ones they choose. It's not that weird actually. It's like the introduction of the game and like other big ones like that. But they'll have full CG cutscenes in the middle of the 2D version, but then they'll have words at the bottom like it's a silent film.
Mhm.
It's a little strange. I agree.
Well, it's just like the original Japanese version where there's no voice acting. So I
Right.
think they kind of just went with that route with the classic. I think that's the one point where I think voice acting would be okay, but I understand what they were going with.
Mm.
And like the CG scenes are very, very far in between.
Yeah,
So
it's very very rare. I guess
yeah.
I was just looking at it like I wasn't sure how the fully orchestrated soundtrack was going to mesh with the 2D version. And having played it with the full orchestra and the 2D version, I find that it looks or it sounds and looks really good. And I don't find that it's disjointed at all. So there are times where I'm like, oh, I kind of wish there was this great because Dragon Quest 11 had exceptional voice acting. Like it was really well placed. Like all the actors were really well uh, picked, and everything was just
Okay.
really well executed. So I'm kind of like, man, I wish I could just turn this on and see see if it would work. But you're right. Like some of the more uh, bigger story sequences, they're not in the same pace, so it would take a lot of effort for them to edit it and make it so it would work. I get it. Just an observation.
I'll say this: the world does not deserve Sylvando. It sure doesn't. He is such a wonderful character
Yeah,
that like you can't just help but be like joyful when whenever he comes into the scene for anything.
yeah. Dude, he's a Stan, you gotta get on this train. I'm telling you. You gotta pick this game up.
Yeah, I'm chasing it. I'm chasing the train. I just gotta jump on now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Even when crap hits the fan, like Sylvando still makes everyone just like, oh, he's so adorable.
gotta Well, he's kinda like that because every RPG has that character, right? That's like really supposed to be outlandish and kind of like usually those characters drive me nuts. I'm thinking from Final Fantasy 9, Kina or Quina, however you want to say his or her name. That type of character that's kind of just off the wall crazy. And you know, different games are different degrees of crazy, right? I think Dragon Quest 11, Sylvando kind of fits that vibe, but he's a lot more contained than other RPGs. But usually that type of character drives me nuts. But in Dragon Quest 11, I actually really liked Savando. He was a really good character. So totally agree, Eric.
They're
Savando,
all good characters. Just Sylvando, it just holds a special place in your heart.
yeah. So I mean, this is yeah, I like it. But yeah, Sylvando, awesome. Anyways, so you guys should go check Dragon Quest 11 out one way or the other. We are suggesting if this is your first time playing, going and picking up the Switch version just because of the bonus content. That seems like the smart thing to do. Just recognize it's not going to look as good as on your 4K television, on your PS4 Pro, or your high end PC, but that's okay. You're getting all this extra content, and the 2D version is awesome. So, seems like the best way to go right now.
We don't have a rating system, so thumbs up to it. There you go.
Yeah, this is take that however you want it.
By now.
We'll do the Fonzarelli form of
For the
recommendation.
I like the Conan O'Brien recommendations. He's like, I give this between spaghetti and pizza, a pepperoni on a sandwich. And you're just like, what does that mean? But okay. Like
Yeah.
he just does that because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So anyways, so next we're gonna go ahead and transition into RPGs coming out next month or in October. And there's a fair amount of them. I've created a playlist here. I think you guys have access to it on our shared document there. You can check that out. But we have all these trailers that we're going to talk about, and certain ones obviously will have more to say than others. But let me see if I can get this on the screen here. All right. So the first one we got here is the Alliance Alive HD Remaster. And let me get this full screen here. This is going to be coming out on. When's it coming out here? What's our doc say? Let me get this
Which one are
open.
you looking at?
Alliance Alive looks like October 8th,
October
The
8th.
8th. Yep.
$49.99. So I've only played about 3 hours of this game, mostly because I had some other stuff I had to play, but it had a lot of buzz when it came out, and I just didn't get on board when it did come out. But I'm actually looking forward to this version because it just makes sense. Like, this was a late 3DS title. It doesn't make any sense not to port it. It looks great. One thing that stood out to me was the soundtrack. I really, of all the faults with Final Fantasy 13, I felt like it had a really good soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some of the tracks were used kind of in a weird spots, but for the most part, it was really good. And this has the same composer of Final Fantasy 13. I can't pronounce the guy's name. It's like Hamazu or something like that.
Hamauzu, I think.
Yeah,
I
I do. I
pronounce
tried.
it.
I tried. Yeah, I tried Googling it, and I found an interview where he said his own name, and I was just like, I put it in slow mo, and I was like, I can't say that.
Still didn't help.
No, I was like, dude, you're that. Sorry, you're the Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 13 composer.
He's kind of I feel like he has just like, well, he makes really great music, but he has really terrible luck. So he has done other games like Saga Frontier 2 on PlayStation 1
Mhm.
because he worked for Square for quite a while before doing 13 soundtrack. And he did some songs in Final Fantasy X, but most people who think of Final Fantasy X still think of it as Uematsu. And so, unless you actually look up the tracks, which ones were his and which ones were still Uematsu, it's kind of
Yeah.
you,
Well,
you don't
it's
really get an
I
idea
like
for how
his
good he is. Yeah.
I
yeah.
like his work. Like Alliance Alive in particular always feels very somber and like eerie at the same time.
Mm.
Like I don't know how the best way to describe it. Like Final Fantasy 13 had some of these tracks too, where like you're just like in like you feel like you're lost and like middle of nowhere, you don't know where to go, and like the music just like complements that so much.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I love 13 soundtrack. It's actually one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of complaints about 13, but the soundtrack is not one of them.
Yeah.
Like, I think all 3 games in the 13 trilogy had a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, he.
And Alliance Alive is no different. That game had some really good music.
Yeah, Hama Ozu, he composed Dirge of Cerberus as well. So he's like
He's
cursed to like write really great music, but then
like the
kind of
worst games.
for the games with bad reception. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of interesting too that this port is coming to other consoles also. So it's coming to PlayStation 4 and the PC as well. So, and I guess it's not that unusual, but it's kind of cool. You know, it was previously just on the 3DS, I believe, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
and it's a $40 game on the 3DS. I think it still is a
yeah,
$40 game on the 3DS. So the thing with it is, from what I hear, it is pretty much a straight port, but like the resolution has been increased on it. I think there
hmm
might be some minor improvements also, but for the most part, it is the same game. So if you already played it on the 3DS version, then I don't think you're going to get much new except that you're playing it on the console.
right. It's not like they did with Dragon Quest 11 where they added all that extra stuff in. Like it's basically literally just a port in this case, a better looking port, but
Yeah,
yeah,
like they did a good job. Like the characters look like I don't know if it's like 720p or 1020p they jumped it to,
sure.
but that was a 240p game, and they blew it up
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
So
this looks a lot better. And you know, this isn't like a Dragon Quest s- known entity, right? So it's not like I think it's okay that they're not just like adding like an extra like 15 hours of story in, you know. It's they're just giving people that didn't get a chance to play it this past time around another way to play the game. And I think that's
yeah,
okay. Yeah, I'm
top
a
of that
fan.
they release it at the end of the 3DS cycle, so it makes sense that they want to take their time.
Capitalize.
They put a lot of time and work in and put it into a new console that'll work, or that everyone's playing now. So it
Hmm.
Yeah.
does make sense. The price tag on it is $50 though.
It's a little steep.
So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it to first timers. I think the $50 is probably worth it. But if you're someone who already spent $40 on the 3DS and played and beat it, I guess it depends if you want to have a console experience with it this time. You want to or a better like portable experience through the Switch. Um, it is a steep price. Maybe if you're a second time player, I'd probably maybe wait till it drops in price some. Fifty
Yeah.
dollars is kind of steep to just play it on a better resolution.
Well, and you got to think about it too, though. It's like, well, for example, with like Nino Kuni, right? The Switch version was kind of criticized because it was just a straight port. Like it didn't really, it wasn't like an HD remaster like the console got. So, you know, at least with this game, the fact that it is coming from the 3DS version, no matter what version you pick up, it is going to look better, right? It's actually a remastered version of the game. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, okay, like, is it $50? You know, what do you want? Do you want the portable version? Do you want the console version? But you know, if you're interested in picking this up, I don't think that there's going to be a bad way to play this. So,
Yeah, like I said, if you're a first time person coming into this, I think the $50 is a fine enough price. Just
yeah,
like I'm speaking more to people who are maybe interested in playing it the second time.
I
Like,
gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
so maybe on those people, maybe wait until it comes down in price a little bit.
it is a very classic RPG type game for better or worse. So if you like those 16-bit obscure ones, kind of like Saga, not so much this game. Their first game, Legend of Legacy, was more like that.
Yeah.
This one is more streamlined and more narrative focused, so it's a little more streamlined because of that. So, but the battle system is heavily inspired by like more obscure SquareSoft titles.
Mm. Yeah.
So
The
something you want to research before you play it, but it's still a really good game. As someone who likes those obscure Super Nintendo games.
Agreed. Stan, what
Mhm.
were you gonna say?
I was just gonna add that yeah, the scenario writer is Yoshitaka Moriyama, who
Huh.
is the creator of the Suikoden series. and then
Nice.
he had a kind of a falling out with Konami, and I think they made. I don't think I think he wasn't involved in Suikoden 4 and 5, but you hear people all the time kind of lamenting that he's not involved with Suikoden, and Suikoden's gone, and who knows if it's ever coming back. Well, this is what he's been up to.
It's
you know,
okay.
Right.
A
so
lot of Konami IPs are gone now.
yeah, so if you loved Suikoden, take a look at Alliance Alive and go support your guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so that's coming out on October 8th. PC, Switch, and PS4. And like we said, it'll be $50. So, uh, that's an option for you. Next one is going to be Indivisible, which is coming to the PS4. And this game is a little crazy because I know fans are supporters of this. This was a crowdfunding game initially. It got $1.5 million, I believe. And like only in like a couple of months, but that was back in like 2015. So they were able to release a demo. A lot of people really like the demo, but a lot of people have been waiting a very long, it feels like a very long time to play this game, but it's got like
It
hand
looks
drawn,
gorgeous.
yeah, hand drawn graphics. It looks great.
It
And
looks really cool.
yeah, and the animated scenes, they actually went out and hired um the a Japanese anime studio. It's called Studio Trigger. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm not a big anime fan. But
From what I
anyways,
read, they did animations for an anime called Kill la Kill, something like
interesting.
that.
I don't
I've
know.
never seen that show. That's something I read while reading the article.
Yeah, so they've spent some money on this for sure. I guess after they got that $1.5 million that quickly, 505 Studios I think came along and like helped pay and fund for the rest of this development. So it man, this artwork and aesthetic, it just looks awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And on top of that, the battle system and the way you traverse in the game is very, very Valkyrie profile
That's the
inspired.
first thing I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is kind of that like kind of 2D or style to where you can only go in like one direction. Yeah.
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 Essentially, from what I see, how the combat works from watching it, like you do specific combos, like in certain orders with your characters to do more damage, and
Mhm.
you can like mix and combine like different characters in your group. Like she picks up characters as joiners, similar to Valkyrie profile, where you get like a recruitment of like mini characters and you can like combine them in certain ways to do like major combo hits with them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my guess
So
is it's like Valkyrie profile where they're all assigned to like one button, and so like yeah, like each character is assigned to the face buttons. I think that's what it
yeah,
looks like.
for them to see there's pretty heavy platforming out of battle also.
Hmm.
So I mean they mixed a lot of elements in here, but Valkyrie profile is definitely like the number one thing they. So I mean it's obviously it's its own world story and feeling like that. I'm speaking purely of the
Hmm.
gameplay and combat, which is good because when was the last time we've gotten Valkyrie, like an actual Valkyrie profile game? That's
Uh,
PlayStation 2.
PS2, I think. Yeah, Valkyrie
Yeah.
profile 2. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and those combat systems were amazing. Like, I wish there were like more games that like did stuff like mixed, like properly mixed, like turn based in that together.
Hmm.
Like, so I'm glad to see something like this come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But too bad it's not coming out on the Switch anytime soon. Apparently,
Yeah.
that's
Not yet.
what I want to play it on.
So what was the release date again? I'm trying to let me pull that
I
go
think
back.
it's an October 8th release date also.
Okay, so October 8th on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Amazon states December 31st for the Switch, but that could just be a placeholder. That might not be the actual release date because that's
Yeah.
kind
That
of
sounds
strange.
like a placeholder date. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, 'cause
They
here's the
have to put a
thing.
date. They have to put a date in order to be able to have a pre-order for it. And
right.
so even if there's no date, they typically put that December 31st just so that they can legally put it up there as a pre-order.
Right.
On top
Otherwise
of
you
that,
yeah. Go ahead.
this game started development in 2015
Mhm.
by an indie group, and the Switch wasn't even announced till 2000, like late 2016.
Right.
So I'm sure they had to like readjust, like, or like hire some other company when after they finished this one to port it over, similar to what they're doing, like with Crosscode. Crosscode came out like PC only, then came out in PS4, and then I believe they have to hire another company to get Crosscode properly ported over to the Switch. I think Indivisible, if I had to guess, is probably doing the same thing.
Yeah. Man, tangent, but I checked on the Crosscode Discord server because developers are on there, and I went into a general chat and I said, "Hey, you guys said this game was coming out around this time and on the Switch in 2019. Is it when's it coming?" You know, just kind of like giving them a hard time,
And
and
3 more months.
yeah, and they were just like, "Oh, it's coming," but I kind of got the impression that if it is coming 2019, still it's going to be Christmas time or something like that. Like I think they're
Yeah.
They got 3 more months.
yeah, but man, that game is good. I can't wait for that game too. So,
Yeah, I love that on the Switch big time.
yeah, dude, they're still putting content into the PC version. It's crazy. So, anyways, but Indivisible, October 8th. It's $40, PS4, Xbox One, PC, Switch at a
Yeah.
later point. We don't know when.
And
So,
another thing to add is that they have the composer from Secret of Mana working on
oh
this
yeah,
for Indivisible.
I forgot
Oh,
that.
nice.
So, yeah, and also many people don't realize the composer of Secret of Mana. He started the studio and made the first prequel game to Shadow Hearts. So a lot of
Mm.
people really like that series, and he that specific game, it's called Keldeka, and that was one of the first PlayStation games that used a completely live instrumentation, like no synthesized instruments at all. Like he recorded everything and wrote everything, and it was all like acoustic guitars and flutes and stuff. It was pretty crazy. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
but anyway, so that guy is doing the music for this. That's really cool.
He is, yeah.
Awesome. Man, a lot of good games. Okay, so next game we have. This game is called Dorman Story of Seasons. Now, apparently, I'm not up on my
It's a
on my
farming simulator.
yeah, it's a farming simulator, but I'm not up on my what's it called? What's the Harvest Moon? But apparently
Yeah.
apparently Story of Seasons is Harvest Moon. I didn't realize that.
It is, yeah.
So
That's a weird
It's hard to tell with the different art style that they're using. I think that's more they're making artwork that's more closer to whatever, Doraemon.
well,
Doraemon. Yeah.
here's the thing, because I looked up Dorman because I thought like I feel like since this is like a collab thing, like maybe I should know about this. Dorman is I don't even know if I'm saying this correctly, but it's started off as a manga in like the late 60s in Japan, and apparently it's like outrageously popular there, and there's been over 63 different video games released in Japan with this name Doraemon on it,
Hmm.
and but none of those games have come to the West ever. So this is the first time a game with the name Doraemon in it is coming to the West. From what I read online, if somebody has a correction to that, I'd be glad to know. But I mean,
I'm guessing that's only because it's a collaboration with another type of game that they know kind of already sells here, at
yeah.
least reasonably well,
In the
right?
US, it's called Doraemon Gadget Cat from the Future.
All right,
And it had 2
was
seasons in 2014 and 2015.
so wait, there was a US version of an anime
I
or a
guess so.
manga? Okay. So,
Unfortunately, I'm not up to snuff on my Doraemon.
yeah. Well, I don't know, the art style, like I'm not a big fan of the character, like the NPC style, but I do like the background. It's very like almost looks like a painting. I think that's really cool. But I'm not really into like farming simulators, and I saw this game popping up on all sorts of like RPG websites, and I don't know why it's considered an RPG. Like, does he level up somehow, or does he can
Um,
I don't know. I guess it's kind of got like a RPG type feel to it.
it's kind of like a you're building your farm up, right? So it's kind of like a more of like a base building type of system, except obviously it's not like there's not really combat in the game or
Right.
anything.
It's not like Age of
Um,
Empires or something. Yeah.
yeah, but there is kind of like you build up like relationships with the NPCs and such.
Hmm.
But it is more of like a farming simulator slash visual novel type of experience, I would say.
Yeah.
Not really like a traditional JRPG.
Right.
Yeah, the main character looks like the main character from like the Doraemon manga because like the apparently the cat's like a robot
Oh, so
deal, and this is the kid that like owns the robot or something like that.
the
Hmm.
thing I just said that I didn't like about the trailer is is the collaboration part. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Uh,
looks everything looks Harvest Moon except like the characters.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like if you're a Harvest Moon fan, then like like even if the Doraemon stuff like you don't know about, you can probably enjoy this game just fine.
Yeah, these are just great time killers. These types of games just pick up, if you have 5 minutes, just go ahead and work on collecting more materials or managing some kind of process in the game, and then putting it down and coming back to it later, checking up on it. It's just a nice little time killer, I think. These types of games, so nothing wrong with it.
Hmm.
Let's see here. Next we have Grandia HD Remaster. It's the Steam version. So this is going to be just Grandia 1. On Steam, you can buy the game separately. So this is coming, I think, I don't know, what's the date? October
15th.
15th? Okay. So
We
I
we played Grandia HD, and the HD version, at least on the Switch version, was pretty good.
yeah, I've really enjoyed that version. So this is really cool.
Yeah,
I'm
so
Another game I need to buy.
unless the PC version has some like some really bad bugs, like it should be the same game, probably even with better resolution or options since it's on PC. So, man, if you've been waiting for the PC version for this, then
Yeah, we were kind of in the middle on our impressions on the for Grandia 1 anyways, the character models or character sprites, however you want to say it, the filter type deal they put on them. Sometimes it looks really good, sometimes it didn't look too good.
most of
When
it was close up.
Yeah, so I could see on the PC version maybe having some mods available down the road where maybe they could touch that up a little bit. Would Might be a cool way to play it for those that are hardcore Grandia fans. So, yeah, I'm sure it'll be like $20. It's got to be because the collection was 40 on Switch. So,
And I think Grandia 2 is 20 on Steam.
yeah, so
So it
that
makes
sounds
sense for
right.
it to be 20.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's Grandia coming on October 15th. There's been a rumor that it might be delayed a little bit because of a patch that's coming to the Switch version. I don't know what the patch that's coming to the Switch version is going to do, but I've heard some rumors that it might be delayed a little bit. But as of right now, it's still coming out in October. So, um, next we got Little Town Hero. Did you guys realize that? Okay, first off, this is the Game Freak's making, the company that makes Pokemon. This is
Hmm.
their new game that's not Pokemon, right?
Yep.
It's got Toby Fox, composer of Undertale. A lot of cool stuff with this. But
Hmm.
apparently, this is not going to have a physical release. Apparently, it's only digital. And people that are looking forward to this game are they're like, hey, no, we want a physical version. But I'm surprised there's not a physical version of this game coming. It seems like a very like a well-known studio making this. They put a lot of marketing into this. Like, I'm surprised it's digital only.
Hmm.
You look at the game, it's like it's a high quality looking game. And like I'm really surprised it's only $25.
Yeah, I wonder how long it is. It must be a shorter game.
I mean, the whole like premise is that, like like you're defending this town from monsters. So possibly you're in this one place the entire game,
Hmm.
from what I see.
Yeah,
See.
that's a good point. Perhaps it's not the full length RPG that some people that are wanting a physical edition want, or at least that they're thinking it would be. Because that is a good point. You only see this town, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's Little Town Hero. It's called also.
Yeah,
So
it's not little towns, right? So
from what I see, like I think maybe you help build more upon the town, and like then you get like certain like major scenes that happen like in between those times where you're like defending the town against monsters and stuff like that.
right,
It probably has more story progression. I imagine this is probably not too long of a game either. If it's
25.
25, because you know Nintendo is not above selling like very short games for $60.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we talked about that last week where some people were upset that Link's Awakening, a game that I mean, obviously they did a lot of work, but it's essentially a remake of a Game Boy game. It was, $60. And not everyone was down with that, even though it's a great game. So they will not shy away from, putting stuff at $60. So yeah, that is surprising. It's 25.
but then again, this is not internal Nintendo. This is Game Freak, who are technically like um how was the best way to put it? Would you consider them third party or second party developers?
Mm, I mean,
Like, 'cause
like,
Game Freak doesn't make anything but for Nintendo.
right.
So
I don't know any games that are on another console. Yeah.
so I guess maybe second party.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like Little Town Heroes, I don't need any other console.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I don't think I'm going to pick this up, to be honest. Like, I'm,
Mm,
I'm
not my
curious
type
about
of
it. Yeah, I'm curious about it, but it's just like it's something that I really need to see the reviews on. I don't quite get what it's about. Like, I get that you're protecting a town. I get that like looks like there's some kind of turn-based styled combat in it, which I think is cool. I dig the art style. I think it's cool Toby Fox is doing the music, but it doesn't seem I don't get the story. Is there a hard story focus, or is it just kind of like lighthearted? It looks pretty lighthearted to me. So, I think this is just going to be a casualty of October, the fact that I'll have other things I'm playing and
Yeah.
yeah, so
It's bad timing, right?
yeah.
It's gonna fall through the cracks with stuff like Alliance Alive and Indivisible and other games coming out.
and Pokemon, their own
And
game,
Pokemon. Yeah.
Pokemon's coming out in November, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
mid-November. So that's like 3 or 4 weeks after this game comes out.
yeah, so this has to be like this can't
Yeah.
be a huge tale. It's got to be a little game given it's a little town.
Mm.
All right. So we'll have to see about this one. This is on our possible list but probably not. Then we have Witcher 3. This was a game that Witcher 3 coming to the Switch. This was a game I was initially really excited for. I'm still kind of excited for it, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit because like okay,
$60. Oof.
it's well, I mean, you're getting all the content, like all the DLC and stuff as this one game, which is cool. And I have to give CD Projekt Red credit that the trailer they've put out for the Switch version, they literally used game footage from the Switch version. A lot of times, like with Square, they'll put like the PS4 version trailer for like their remasters, like Final Fantasy X remaster, they'll just use PS4 footage for like the same footage for all the versions, right? So
Mhm.
they like CD Projekt Red is not like they're not kidding anyone what they're getting into. Like this footage is clearly from the Switch version, and
Hmm.
it doesn't. I mean it it's playable, but it's clearly very muddy compared to the PS4 version. So it's kind of like one of those things where I'm just like, this is cool they did this, but I'm not sure I want to play it like this.
Bit of a
I
tough
do
sell,
want to
huh?
play it like that. My only two concerns are one the price. I have to. I'm not going to pay full price for it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait till it gets much cheaper on the sale. Which a game like this does go on sale all the time. So I'm
Uh,
sure down the line we'll see probably it for 30 or 25 or
Yeah.
so. So I'll wait for to try it then. The other thing is this thing is probably a battery killer, big time if you play it portable.
With
There's no
the
other way you want to play this except portable.
Yeah, I feel like if I was going to play this portable mode, I would want the new Switch model that has the extended battery life because I suspect you're right. You're going to need that because this has got to just like murder your Switch battery, especially on full resolution. Because from a lot of the people that got hands on with this game, they said they prioritized a stable frame rate, so that's why it looks pretty muddy in certain scenes because they want the frame rate to be stable because it is an action RPG. That it's important to have a reliable frame rate. So I think that's good. But I mean, the fact that it's an open world game and like you can just traverse for miles and there's like all this sunlight and stuff and just, NPCs walking around and all these different like little audio clips playing. I mean, this has got to just eat your Switch battery alive.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like even Breath of the Wild, like on the Switch, the original Switch model I have can like eat up the whole battery in like between the 3 to 4 hours, give or take. I like this game will be like the same thing, maybe even worse, like on
Yeah.
the original Switch.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. The portable mode is probably the best way. The only way I would consider picking this up is playing it in portable mode, like in my bed or on a trip or whatever. Because I mean, if you're gonna hook this up to your TV, there's cheaper ways to play all this content on your television, right?
Hmm.
You can go pick up the PS4 version with all the extra content used for like $15. I've seen it. So it's kind of in that area where you're like, if you're going to play it on your TV, just go get that version. It's going to look better. It's going to sound better, you know, but being able to play it in your bed, just cuddled up with with your blankets and stuff and just settle into the world of Witcher is really cool. So I can definitely see how people might get into this. So
Sounds like
Uh,
what we really need is a 2D sprite version, right, of Witcher 3, right?
yeah, yeah,
It'll fly off the shelves then, right?
yeah.
I'll tell you that regardless which version you pick, Witcher 3 is an amazing game. Like I've made that like I still think this is the best Western RPG that's ever been made.
Yeah, it's
I
one of
really
those
think it's that good.
it's one of those games that was just really defining for I think this generation. You have those games. Like I remember like when Skyrim came out, that even though I have my issues with Skyrim, that was just a huge game that really changed the landscape. I think like a lot of games try to copy that game. And I think that Witcher 3 is kind of like similar, I would hold in that similar uh esteem that like, okay, this game came out and then all of a sudden like all these different studios try to copy it, right? Make
Hmm.
their own like Witcher style game. So
Yeah.
definitely kudos to CD Project Red on this one. They knocked it out of the park. So
Like almost like an experiment for them. They're like, "Can we do this for other games? Let's see."
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. If you want to play the PlayStation 2 version, you can play it on the Switch. I'm just kidding. It doesn't look that bad. Anyways, so that's coming out on October 15th. $60, the Switch. Pick it up if you're interested. What do we got here next? The Legend of Heroes Cold Steel 3, I think, is what's coming up next here.
Excuse me, it's Trails of Cold Steel 3.
Oh, shoot. I messed it up. I'm sorry, guys. You can dislike the video. Um,
Come on, I've only played first chapter and even I know.
well, I've only played the first game and I haven't even beaten it, but I really liked what I played. It's on my bucket list to go through this entire series because I know a lot of, or I, anyways, I'm gonna stop talking. Stan, you're familiar with this, right? More so?
Yeah, I played and beat the first game, the PS3 version,
Okay.
and I really liked it.
Hmm.
It has like kind of the anime school trope going on, though I found it more bearable than other games. Like it's not, it's definitely there, and it's definitely one of the focuses of the game, but um, it's not such a huge thing as in some other games like Persona or like Valkyrie Valkyria Chronicles 2 has it. Like they really go overboard with that
Now,
school
would you
setting.
compare it more to like Final Fantasy VIII, where it's like a set piece more than a core concept?
Um, yeah, I would say it's a little more in depth than that, and just that you have free days that you spend around the school grounds that you kind of choose to talk to different party members and like build links with them, kind of Persona style. But
Mhm.
it's not well, the only Persona game I've played is Persona 4, and it's not as in depth as that. Like kind of the relationship building in it is primarily to get build up your character's links that they use in battle. So it's not too kind of visual novel type of character relationship building. But it's definitely has an element of that, but it's not so much. I guess I would say it strikes a better balance than like a Persona type of game. That's just my opinion. So,
Yeah.
but from what I understand, is Trails of Cold Steel 2 and now 3 like actually kind of move away from the school setting, and this uh, the developer of this game, Falcom, they've created this Legend of Heroes world starting with Trails in the Sky, which is on the originally on the PSP and also on the PC now. That's kind of the first one, and so it's like a large overarching story that you can kind of jump in with Trails of Cold Steel, the first game, but with this game, Trails of Cold Steel, from what I understand, is at this point this is where like all those storylines kind of converge. There's Trails in the Sky, and then there's Trails of Zero, I believe it's called, which we never got an official translation for that for those two games here, and now Trails of Cold Steel. So it's like Trails of Cold Steel 3 is where they've decided to converge all three of those storylines and characters to all join.
Interesting.
So for the people who have been like really keeping up with the series, like this is a pretty big deal. Like this is kind of like their Avengers, right? Their joining of the JRPG.
So, if you're not familiar with this really at all,
I
you
am familiar with it. Um,
but I
I
mean,
would say like on a
well, I'm
casual level. I've only played two of the. Now this is the seventh game.
oh, okay.
So
So, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that you're not familiar. I'm saying if someone out there listening is not familiar with this at all, like even more so, like you've played 2 games, they haven't played any of them. Do you think they could pick up right here and like enjoy themselves? Or do you think that's just a very bad idea? Like, you think
Hmm.
they would just be absolutely lost? I guess you don't know because you haven't played it, but if you
I
had
don't
a
know, but I get the feeling that you need to have at least played Cold Steel 1 and 2 to get into this one. I mean, otherwise it's like I guess you could just watch Return of the Jedi, right, as your first Star Wars movie, but
yeah. It's so weird that they still make games like that though, because, like they cost so much money to make, and like with every new game you make, there's less people that can play the game and like know what's
right.
going on. So it's kind of like a diminishing returns. But I think it's cool for everyone that
Hmm.
has played all of them because it's like that much more enjoyable that you just have this like almost novel like experience that just keeps going on and on. It's really
Right.
cool.
They really need to make some kind of collection or something like and release it on Steam. But like I said, those middle games, well, there's Trails of the Sky 1, 2, and 3, I believe actually, and then the next two they made, they never translated and brought into English officially. There is a fan translation project that I think for one of the games is almost finished. Um, Somebody in the comments can probably correct me when this goes up. But
There's just too many games to get into
yeah,
for this
this
series.
is like this game is kind of like the culmination of like a long series going back that I believe Trails in the Sky, the first release of it was like in the mid 2000s on the PSP. That's the version that I played.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of, I feel like this. I feel like I was just born a little too early to like really get into this because like I feel like if I just got in at the beginning and maybe being born isn't really the right way to put, but I wasn't
You weren't aware of it, right?
right when it first came about, and like now that like once I did become more aware of it, it came more on my radar. It was just like very very daunting
Yeah.
to
Well, here's the crazy thing. Trails in the Sky, I should look it up, came out in the West on the PSP, right? And it
hmm
was exclusive to PSP. I want to say it came out in like 2006 or so, and then was re-released on Steam many years later. Um, okay, it came out in Japan in 2006.
okay.
We didn't actually get it until 2011, so that's when I played it because I remember playing it when it was new. And then
Five 5 years.
yeah, and then the sequel, number two, the second chapter, didn't come out.
I'm already lost.
Well, the sequel,
Okay.
Trails in the Sky, second chapter. So the
Okay.
first one we
2000
got was in 2011, and we didn't get the sequel until 2015.
That's crazy.
2015. It just took that long for Xseed to localize it because there's so much text in the game.
That's
Yeah, no joke. There is a lot of text in the
Yeah,
game.
these games, especially the Trails in the Sky series, is really crazy for whenever like a major story event goes happens, and you can go back and talk to NPCs, and they have all new dialogue, and they have like their own little stories going along that you can follow if you go back and talk to them. So
so
it's
it's pretty dense, huh? But like in a good way.
yeah, and so that's why I kind of fell off the series. Is I played the first one when it was new, and then I was like waiting for the sequel, and then I assumed it never came out, and then I just found out like in 2016, like, oh yeah, they released the sequel last year, and I was like, that game, that one I played back on the PSP all those years ago, and now the sequel has just now come out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and so I
yeah.
jumped into Trails of Cold Steel, and then I found out about those other two games that haven't come out yet, and I'm like, okay, I like you said, this one's going on the bucket list to someday when they're all available, just play them all, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
One day.
One day. Like Trails of Cold Steel 4 is already a thing in Japan. I'm not sure when we're getting that, but I
It's
mean,
just why can't they get a more consistent release date? That's crazy.
yeah, I don't know. They're actually a very small company, Nihon Falcom. I don't think they have that many employees, so
Yeah, but these
and they kind of
games are
make
like really popular, I feel like. Maybe
they are now for sure. Like they're but like 2 3 years ago, I don't think that many people knew about Legend of Heroes series or Trails in the Sky or Trails of Cold Steel. They're kind of really picking up a lot of momentum, I think, because um, other JRPG series, right, are kind of like Final Fantasy in a lot of people's eyes has been struggling. The Tales series has been kind of struggling, so people are looking elsewhere. And the people who really like these Trails games, like really like them, and they're
right.
constantly like trying to get the word out about how good they are, and so more people are coming across these games, and it's gaining a lot of traction in the West. Also, since this is the same company that makes the Ease games,
Mm,
like
yeah.
that we've talked about in the past. Those are kind of their two big franchises, right? The Ease, which is like their action RPG franchise, and Trails of Cold Steel or Trails in the Sky, which is their more turn-based traditional JRPG franchise. And so they're
Interesting.
gaining a ton of momentum right now as the other JRPG franchises are kind of treading water, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I will not be checking this one out because I don't want to be lost.
Right.
But but not because it doesn't look good or because I think it's gonna suck. It's just I need to get caught up first. So
Yeah, I would be all over it if I had played Trails of Cold Steel 2 even probably, but I haven't even played that one yet. So
I think I'm just way too late into this game. The only Legend of Heroes game I've beaten is the first one that they had on the PSP.
is that
Not even first like chapter. It's like the Legend of Heroes games before they went to that series.
yeah, they had another one. There was like another trilogy of Trails in the Heroes games that came before Trails in the Sky. I can't remember what it's called at the moment, but
And they got into 10 hours into first chapter of Trails in the Sky. Oof, man. Like I
yeah,
understand why people like it, but man, the writing just kept getting to me. Like it just felt dragged out for so long. These
yeah,
scenes,
mm.
like I was like, please let it be over. Let me continue playing.
See, I liked
yeah.
what I played, but I guess it's just a preference thing. But I mean, granted, I haven't played as much as you, Eric. So maybe if I would get to that point where I was like, ah, God, please, no, not another one.
Yeah.
But I liked it. So anyways, so when's this coming out again?
Oh, I believe it was.
October 22nd, right? And be PS4, be $60.
Yeah.
So look
Like
forward
I
to
said, the people who are looking forward to it are gonna eat it up. They're
yeah,
gonna love it, I think. So
yeah. So cool. Next up we have The Outer Worlds. This is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch on when we get October 25th for $60. It's coming to the PC as well. Okay, hold on. I made a mistake here. So PS4, Xbox One, and PC on October 25th. I don't know if the Switch version's coming out on 25th as well. Maybe one of y'all can check on that. But yeah, this looks like a better version of the Fallout series. I'm all about it.
yeah,
It looks like it continues what was great about New Vegas.
Yeah.
So can't go wrong with that. That's the between 3, New Vegas, and 4. I think New Vegas was the only one I really liked.
yeah,
So I'll be happy to see what this team does.
yeah. They're the team behind New Vegas Obsidian,
Yeah.
and they're owned by Microsoft. They acquired them recently, but they're putting it out on all platforms, which is interesting.
Yeah. Microsoft really has not cared that much about that lately, which is crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they just think like, hey, our Xbox One sales, like at this point, there's not really much of a point to making this like exclusive to our console or whatever. Like how many more Xbox Ones are we gonna sell if we make Outer Worlds exclusive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Might
I,
just be a money decision.
I think they just acknowledged that, okay, we lost this generation. We're
Yeah,
just not even going to act like we're still in it. But maybe they're looking at, okay, we can put this game out on all these different consoles. It can build up a following, people that really like it. And then the next Xbox, right? That game will be exclusive. And it's like, hey, you really liked this game. Come check out the follow up, but it's only Xbox. Now you have to buy an Xbox. I think that's what they're
yeah.
going.
It looks like the Switch version is no release date announced yet.
Okay.
So this is just Windows, PS4, Xbox One. And another thing is this game is not coming to Steam on the 25th.
Oh, okay.
Um,
We got that
it's
wrong. Or I got that wrong. When's it?
it's got an exclusivity deal with Epic Game Store and Microsoft Store for at least 1 year. It says here on the wiki article.
Oh, so it's still coming to PC. It's just not coming to Steam itself.
It's not coming to Steam for at least a year. So
If Borderlands 3 is any indication, people are willing to download the Epic Game Store to play it on PC.
I would think so, probably for the people who are really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Microsoft Store if you don't want to support Epic Game Store.
Yeah. I think that I don't know. I've played lots of games on my PC, and it's always I have a pretty good PC, so it usually is the best experience. But there's something about just playing it on the console and playing it in the living room with my sound bar, and I can chill out on my couch and just be lazy.
Right.
I really like that experience, so I'm kind of leaning towards that, to be honest. I don't think that I would want to play this on the Switch, just kind of similar to my feelings with like The Witcher. Like it's like, this game like this wasn't the way it was intended to be played or to be seen. Not that that'll be bad. Just I want to play it somewhat high end, right?
Hmm.
So I'm kind of leaning towards the PS4 version. But what do y'all think?
Probably PC for me. This is I usually like playing first person shooters and with a mouse and keyboard.
That's true. That's true.
And I don't have like an immediate hatred for Epic Game Store like a lot of people do. I don't have any emotional attachment to Steam. I mean, I don't completely agree with some of the strong arming styles that Epic Game Store does, but I don't have any strong ties to either company. So I just want to play the game on the PC. I don't care necessarily what I have to download.
Yeah. Regardless, I think it's really cool, what they've developed here, what they've shown thus far anyways. I mean, they've really taken the Fallout vibe or the spirit of Fallout, and they've gone like a totally new direction with it to where it's a new concept, but it still feels very Fallout, right? It feels like almost, I guess, like they're on like a faraway planet. It's kind of like a building a new civilization type feel to it, where whereas with Fallout games, it's post apocalyptic, and kind of civilization has started over, so it's a similar vibe, but it's different enough to where it's not a straight copy, but it's very clearly catering to the audience that really likes those games. So
Hmm.
it looks really good.
Yeah. Hope maybe it'll put some pressure right
I think
on Bethesda.
that's gonna be the biggest game for at least the west side of the world.
Yeah,
October 25th. I mean, it's kind of like a good time too. There's no other games like it really coming out. I think Borderlands 3 is probably its biggest competitor.
and yeah, by then it's going to be yeah,
Been there, done that. Time for
yeah,
the new
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's coming out October 25th. Check it out. And then our last game here, one I am definitely going to pick up, Children of Morta. Now, this game we talked about last time because it was on PC. It was announced for PC, but it was also announced for other um, systems. And looks like it's coming to, let's see, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch on October 29th for $21.99. Now, this is a indie styled game, and I went to go check out some of the reviews of this game for the PC just to see how well it was reviewed, because we were kind of curious, like, is this just one of those indie games that looks cool but isn't actually a good game? And it's been getting really good reviews. I mean, p- people have been kind of describing it as a it's kind of like a blend between a just traditional action RPG game, but it's also got a lot of like roguelike elements to it. But it's got a lot of like heavily narrated like story sequences that you would expect from like an old like Western click-based game where it's like, okay, the hero now enters the park and or whatever. The game's not like that because that was a horrible interpretation, but it's kind of got like a like just narrating voice over it, kind of telling you what's going on with the story, and it allows for some co-op play, so you can play with another person, and it just looks like a really cool game to play, and the Switch seems like a perfect place for it to be. So
Yeah, I mean, I love the graphical style for sure. Like, I love these like 2D sprite arts. Weirdly, the way they do the sprite art kind of reminds me of a really old Prince of Persia 1980s one.
Mm, yeah.
Like they have really cool flowing animation
yeah,
Yeah.
with this like low pixel looking type of deal.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's what like if you did that again, except in 2019.
Yeah. The art style, well, obviously to me anyways, kinda reminded me more of like the Hyper Light Drifter style. It's obviously different, but, it's kinda reminiscent of that to me anyways, but I can see where you're going too
It
with,
looks so similar that I thought it was the same developers.
yeah,
Turns out not to be the case, but I mean, like the style is so similar.
yeah. But, I mean, I love stylistic games, I can play them all day, and, it's this just looks like a really fun world to explore, and apparently the gameplay is pretty good too. It's an action RPG, there's all sorts of different, uh, weapons and, stats and stuff like that, and, it's probably nothing innovative, but it is apparently fun to play, so that's a bonus for me, so I'm looking forward to it. 21.99, and it's on October 29th, coming to PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. I'm gonna get the Switch version. So, yeah, and
Mhm.
check that out. But, anyways, so that wraps us up for, the RPGs that are coming out in October. Got a pretty
Mhm.
good lineup. Not as good or strong as I think, September was. September was ridiculous,
Oh,
but
really? You don't think so?
I don't think so. Well, for me anyways. Do you think it
Okay.
the I mean, there's a lot of good games here, but there's a lot of games that I'm wanting to pass over. Like Grandia HD, I've already got that.
Right.
Dormon, I'm not really into farming simulators.
Yeah.
Little Town Hero, we already said I'm gonna pass on that. I'm gonna probably pass on Witcher 3. Legend of Heroes, I haven't really I don't know enough to play that. So I'm looking
Right.
at The Outer Worlds. I'm looking at Alliance Alive, Children of Morta, and then
Indivisible looks pretty good.
and Indivisible looks pretty good too. So it's still
Yeah.
pretty strong.
Mhm.
Definitely a bank breaker or
Yeah.
wallet breaker, but,
Yeah. I mean, I do want to play Indivisible, but I do want to play on the Switch also, so I might actually wait for that.
yeah.
That's a good point.
Dragon
Yeah.
Quest is going to probably have so much of my time because October will be a little bit busier month for me. So,
Mm.
and that's a pretty big game in itself. So I think if anything, I'd probably get Alliance Alive maybe sometime down the line or Outer Worlds. But I do think my next game after that might actually be like Pokemon
Mm.
Mm,
Sword and Shield.
yeah. I think that, from the lineup of here, I'm definitely gonna pick up Alliance Live for sure, and then I wanna pick up The Outer Worlds. I'm probably gonna pick that up just because it's later in the month, like, it's a good amount of time in between, but I'm gonna be conflicted because I know Children of Morta is coming out, like, 4 days later, and I've been talking about picking that game up for a while. So, we'll see. We'll see how much money I have, how much time I have,
Yeah,
and what's
it's around
that?
$50 to $60.
Yeah,
Like it's like maybe pick one.
Yeah.
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 So, maybe by then, Stan will be playing some Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah,
Right.
right. I gotta get that before I get anything on this list.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so that about wraps us up for RPGs coming out next month. And now we're going to transition into some of our news here. Stan, do you want to take it from here? We got some Final Fantasy VII cover art controversy.
Yeah, controversy, right? Uh,
Let
well,
me. I'm gonna
they
get the
released the
cover up. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, they released the cover of the game, which is very nostalgic homage to the original North American release. It just has Cloud. You see his back and the Buster Sword, and he's just kind of staring up at the Shinra building. I think it looks really nice. However, the I don't see it as much of a controversy yet, right? It's more I consider it a non-controversy, but it's
Complaining and griping just for complaining and griping.
yeah, we got a very brief article from the website Kotaku, written by Mr. Jason Schreier, that says Final Fantasy VII Remake's box art sure is misleading. That's the title of the article. Not like do you think this is misleading? Or some may consider the box art misleading. No, it's just statement of fact, right? It is misleading. That's yeah, but I don't know. The big thing that people are complaining about, um, some people, I don't think this is really that huge of an issue. Um,
That
I think it's
Jason's
being blown
complaining
out of
about.
proportion, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
is that there's no indication on that cover art itself that the game is only the first part, or that it's only Midgar, which I could see that, like, yes, somebody walking into Target, right, and just seeing it on the shelf is like, oh, Final Fantasy VII, that game I loved, right? And if they just grab it and see the front cover, think
Right.
they're getting the whole game, and then go check out. Yes. Um, my counter argument to that is research the things that you buy.
Yeah. I mean, come
You
on.
know, like
But who
um,
who is this person though? Like I'm trying to wrap my mind around like this hubbub around like protecting the like this mystery person that's going to exist. Like who is the person that is like such a huge fan of Final Fantasy 7 that but they have not been following any of the news at all.
right?
And they're just going to find themselves in a Walmart and see this. And then they're such a huge fan of Final Fantasy 7, but they have not been following any of the news. And they're going to pick up the game. And then they're going to like beat the whole game and get to the end and be like, wait a minute. You know,
Yep.
like I'm not saying that person does not exist, but like if they have not been following the news at all about this game and they don't know this, they probably don't care. Like,
Yeah. Like my counter argument to that is like, well, because it is going to happen to someone, or some people. You know, it's bound to. There are
right.
people who don't keep up with the gaming news, and like we do, and it's bound to happen. Somebody's going to pick it up, think it's the full game, and then be disappointed.
Well, I mean, even
Um,
if they read one review, they'll know.
exactly. Like,
Well, the
it,
just the I understand where they're coming from. What I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. Like, but if we're just going to argue for argument's sake, then like maybe they could have like just call it FF7R, and then just like have like Xenosaga 1 has has episode 1 written on the bottom and then like a subtitle for it.
It's like Latin.
mhm.
Yeah, some Latin thing. And then like couldn't be like Final Fantasy 7R episode 1, you know, Cloud's amazing journey in Midgar, who cares, whatever.
So
Uh,
Well,
I think that's a really good point, and I want to say that I agree with the Kotaku article. Technically, this is misleading. I just don't think I care.
well,
Like that's kind of where I'm at.
so the thing is, I don't think you can judge it by just the cover, because we don't know what's on the back, right?
Yeah, it
And
might say.
if the back says, um, the very first sentence is like, experience the city of Midgar like never before, in part one of the remake or whatever, then problem solved. It doesn't have to say it, on the front cover, as long as
Right.
there's something in the description of the game on the back, right, that alludes to the fact that it's just the first part of the game.
I don't
Sure.
like the name remake to begin with. Like that's all
Yeah.
it's going to call it, Final Fantasy 7 remake.
It kind of gives that vibe, like those like old hip hop songs where maybe they still do this, where like it would be like halfway through the song and some girl would just yell remix, and then like it would be like the same song but like a different pace or
Right.
something. Like it's kind of like got that cheese factor where like, oh, did you really like you can't come up with like Final Fantasy 7, the city on a hill or something like that, or something
Yeah.
like I don't know to give you like a kind of vibe. So I get it, but I think remake like I'm a big fan when it comes to marketing, just being like, when you read the title of the product, you should know immediately like what it does or like what it is. And like sometimes just being like very literal, Final Fantasy 7 remake is the best way to go. But I guess that goes back to the original point. It's not really a remake as much as it is the first part of the game expanded upon, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're treating it kind of like the Star Wars trilogy or the Xenosaga trilogy. Like they're all their own standalone games, but they're all ultimately connected to each other.
yeah,
So, maybe it's good to indicate that this is like a first episode of something. Like even in Star Wars, they put like episode. I know the original Star Wars didn't have the episode thing, but when they did start the episode thing, it was 4, 5, and 6. Like it's clearly written there.
yeah,
So I don't know why
Yeah,
they can't just be like FF7 episode 1. Like you don't even need to put remake in. Maybe you can put like an R next to the 7 just to indicate that. But like even then, this is more of a reimagining than a remake.
sure,
mm-hmm.
Remake would be like making the same exact game, but like rebuilding the assets from the ground up. Like reimagining is just like making a completely different game, but with like the same story beats of the original.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I,
I say maybe do it like the Xenosaga style.
yeah, I think that I think I agree. I mean, if they could just like do some kind of a little hint on the front that says, okay, this is part one. I think, okay, fine. It's not that big of a deal. Then you could totally nullify any possible, mispurchases or whatever. But
I think you could just put it on the back.
back
Like,
as well, yes. But I mean, it is a full game. It's supposed to be a full game. And I think what it really comes down to is of all the things to complain about the 7 remake, this is something that I'm not like, I'm okay with this. Like, I'm okay with the way that the cover looks. I think it's awesome. I think that like their intention was not to be misleading. Their intention was to be a tribute to the original game. They're trying to like appeal to fans of the original game and say, hey, we are still trying to keep in spirit of the original game. Look, we kept a similar looking cover. Like
mm-hmm.
this is in the spirit of the original game. And I
Yep.
like that. I think that they should do more of that. I'm happy that they are doing that. I'm happy that it's not some like crazy, it doesn't have like Sephiroth's face on it or something, right? Or or something like
Agreed. Yeah.
absurd like that. It's like in keeping with the original game. Yeah, it's kind of misleading, I guess, but that's not their intention. And I think
Ooh.
if you want to criticize them for being misleading, there's so much for Square Enix. Like, do you remember the Omen trailer for Final
Oh
Fantasy
yeah.
15? This trailer came out 30 days. 30 days. It's not like this trailer came out like years before 15 came out. So like, like the plot changed or whatever. This came
Mm-hmm.
out a month before the game came out. 5 minutes, nothing to do with the game at all. Like literally nothing. You can go watch that whole trailer, not play 15, and literally it does not spoil the game at all. Like it has like Noctis stabbing Luna, like like what? They never even like really met in the original game. Like there's so much stuff in that trailer that did not happen in the main
Mm-hmm.
game. So and whatever, that's a cool trailer. I like that trailer. I realized they patched some of that stuff in, like the Noctis has a dream, and basically he watches the Omen trailer. And so they try to like cheese their way into doing it, but uh, what I'm getting at here is there's been instances where Square has been noticeably misleading. I don't think that was their intention here.
Yeah. And I mean, it. I guess in a technical sense, you can say the remake box art cover is misleading in that it doesn't disclose, right, that it's only the first part. But then my follow up would be that who decides to purchase a game only based on the front cover of a box, right? Like who sees just the box art, doesn't even look at the back, right? Because it could very well explain on the back that it's just part one, right?
Right.
And if those people are out there and they just see, oh, look, a cool cover of a video game, and they just purchase it, like think of all the things that are not disclosed about a game based on the cover art of any game, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of playable characters and other things that don't appear on the front cover. Um, and another thing is like Avengers: Infinity War, right? That movie is part one of two movies that you need to watch to get the full story. It doesn't
Yeah.
say part 1 in the title.
Yeah.
So was it misleading? Not really. Like
Yeah.
most people, well,
I think
no.
there's degrees of misleading on a scale of like 0 to 10, with 10 just being like outright criminal and 0 being not misleading. And
Yeah.
I think that, okay, this is about like a 2,
Yeah,
in
I
my
think
mind.
so.
Yeah, like it's technically misleading, but I don't think
And
it's
then
like
and then if it
egregious.
wasn't disclosed on the back cover, right? So both the front and back cover didn't have
That would
anything
be a
about it
little
only being
worse.
that
Yeah.
would be like, okay, now it's like a 7 or an 8, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So why make a big deal about this when it'll be very easy to disclose somewhere else on the box that it's only part 1
Just for the sake of making a big deal.
for them clicks.
Everyone, the vast majority of people who buy this game are going to understand what it is.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's going to be the very small, astronomically small few amount of people that just randomly pick the game off the shelf without even thinking about it. And even then, we don't even really know how the game is completely structured. It can still be a full game, but then like the next game can be like FF7 like 2 or something like that, similar to FF13, and then like, Final Fantasy 7 Cloud Returns for the third one, but which you could technically do if you know the story of FF.
Yeah.
But um,
he walks again. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. It's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world that they don't completely communicate. I understand where people are coming from, but at the same time, it's just not a big deal. Whoever wants to make a controversy out of this is just wasting their time.
Right.
Controversy.
And as I mean, I don't want to criticize a certain news site, but they are infamous, very, very infamous for being extremely clickbaity.
This is their second go around on Final Fantasy 7 remake and it hasn't even come out yet. The first time it was Barrett's voice actor was a racial stereotype or something, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So
Well,
Yeah. So
it's not a big deal. It's they want people. I don't think they even think it's a big deal. They just want people to click it.
yeah,
yeah.
they're digging for clicks.
So, yeah. And, we've been definitely critical of the 7 remake in the past. From what we've seen, we've mostly enjoyed what we've seen, but we've definitely not been afraid to be critical. And this doesn't even, I don't feel like
Yeah,
hating on the game for this.
we're we're pretty nitpicky about it, right? And this doesn't bother us, so that should tell you something.
Yeah. So, anyways, very, very, very strange. So,
Mhm.
hopefully they put part 1 on there or some kind of subtitle. Hopefully the back says what it is, but if it doesn't, I I won't care. And if you're that guy that goes out and buys this game, beats the entire game, by the way,
Yeah.
and then you find out then, I'm
And
sorry.
didn't look up any reviews, didn't watch any of the content from E3 where it's very clear. Didn't click on this article, which in itself states
You
right,
don't
that
watch this podcast.
yeah.
You
You
can buy
don't.
the original game if you want to continue. It's just 5 hours worth of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, anyways, so that's that. That's that story. Now we have some Discord questions. So specifically, we had kind of a two-parter between two of our listeners. They've asked similar questions or kind of tagged on to it. So the first one was from DQXI Manta, who says, "What is the most disappointing game you guys have played in terms of hopes/expectations being simply too high?" And then the follow-up tag on question from that was from D Demps 88, says, "What is a game that you had little to no expectations for, but you were actually impressed by and or enjoyed to some degree?" So again, the first question, it's a disappointing game that you had high hopes for, expectations, but your hopes were just too high. And the second part, the second question is basically the opposite of that. What's a game that you had no expectations for, but you ended up being impressed? So who wants to start us off?
Pandora's Tower.
You were impressed by that game, or you were like looking forward to it and it didn't impress you?
It was the third one of the Operation Rainfall games. and no, I'm sorry, that's Xenosaga. Xenoblade was a major hit. Last Story was a major hit for me, so I was like, I need this third game now that everyone keeps hyping about, and I didn't like that one. Didn't care for it. I mean, it's essentially climbing this tower the entire game, and you keep getting meat to come back to feed your girlfriend who's cursed at the bottom of the tower. I mean, there's like plots that happen on the way like up to the tower and everything, but that was essentially the whole game. And the Wii controls that you used for it, I did not find intuitive and were just bothersome at best. And I didn't care for that game.
Hmm.
That was the only one I didn't buy European. I waited for the North American version of it, and I didn't care for it. I looked forward to it. It looked cool. It looked unique, but it's the one out of the three that I
Hmm.
did not care for.
I haven't played it, so I couldn't say, but interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
And
have one for?
I was impressed with that. I don't know. I can't think of one top of my head. I was trying to think of it during the we're doing the podcast, but um,
Well, you want me to go ahead and go, and then maybe you'll have something to bring up.
I guess Lost Odyssey is probably one.
So
I
you
did
didn't expect much from that, and it ended up impressing you.
because Blue Dragon really disappointed me.
Okay, that's understandable. You had to
So
start off with that. Blue Dragon disappointed me. That's
yeah,
why. Okay.
then I didn't really care for the art style of the game. I didn't really like the look of the main character, and I kind of looked at like what the UI and everything looked like, and it looked really simplistic. So I thought like even though it has Sakaguchi's name on it, like um, I wasn't really amazed by what he was making. It kind of just like something that didn't stand out.
Mhm.
But I was very wrong about that, and like the narrative was actually really good. Uh, the Kime, I believe his name was a really good character. It was like a really unique twist to everything uh,
Right.
that I thought was going to be in the game, and it turned out having like a good, likable cast of characters. And while it was very basic RPG wise, still was a fun game to go through. And reading those passages of like Kime's memories were just a delight.
Yeah, those are really good. Yeah. That's an interesting pick because I experienced Lost Odyssey before I saw Blue Dragon, so I didn't really have. I think I kind of expected more from it than you did, but that makes sense. So, Stan, is there any games that were disappointing to you that you were expecting more from, and then vice versa?
Um, well, I have two that come to mind that disappointed me.
All
One
right.
was a long time ago, and
Okay.
one was more recent. So the
Okay.
one that was a long time ago, and I might get some hate for this,
Mm-hmm.
was Final Fantasy VIII,
Okay.
because Final Fantasy is my favorite franchise, and it came right after Final Fantasy VII, which is my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
It was even, back when I first played it,
Mm-hmm.
and my first RPG was Final Fantasy IV, right? And I played that, and I loved that.
Okay.
Then I played Final Fantasy VI, and then Seven.
So at
The
this
ones that
point,
were localized, the ones that were brought here at the time.
at this point in your mind, like Final Fantasy has just been knocking it out of the park.
Can do no wrong. Yeah.
Right.
like like these people are just masters of their craft, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it's fair to say that most people consider Final Fantasy VIII worse than those previous three that I just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I
Uh,
think you would find some people that might argue with you a little bit,
yeah,
but
I mean, the game has its supporters, and that's fine. It's just I really didn't like it, and it came as an entry in my very favorite franchise, right?
yeah.
So that is pretty much the reason that it was one of my more disappointing
Well,
purchases and
let me
plays.
ask you this then, because this is an interesting question. Now I'm thinking about this. Okay, so Final Fantasy VIII was a game that you expected a lot out of,
Hmm.
and then it ended up disappointing you for all the reasons you just said.
Yep.
Now, since you just got Final Fantasy VIII on the Switch, can we say because you had that experience of Final Fantasy VIII not impressing you when you were younger, can we turn the tables again and say, well, you didn't expect much for 8 this time, but now it's impressed you? Or are you kind of in the middle on it still?
I still feel like I haven't put enough time into it, and I really don't like the characters. Like, like
Yeah.
especially like Selphie and Zell, right? Those two characters.
Oh man, I like the characters though. I like the characters in Final Fantasy VIII, but I feel you. Selfie is a little bit kind of a little cringe. It's
Yeah.
she's not a bad character. It's just I hate the fact that she's basically wearing a t-shirt for an
Hmm.
outfit, and
Yeah.
it just makes her. I'm not one for like censoring content or anything, but I just feel like it kind of like cheapens her character a little bit, and it just it kind of feels like she's just there for uh, sex appeal, which I don't think is fair to that character because she's actually a pretty good character if you follow it throughout the game. But
Yeah. I
anyways,
need to put more time into it to really say, but
yeah,
just from replaying the beginning of the game again, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I didn't like this game.
okay,
But it taught me a very valuable lesson, which was that Final Fantasy can do whatever it wants to do. And then when I went back and played Final Fantasy 5, and it's like very different in tone to
hmm,
the two games it sits between, right? 4
sure,
and 6.
sure, it's a
And I thought to
different,
myself, if this was localized and then I played it back on the SNES, I may have thought differently about Final Fantasy 8, right? Because might not have had those like rising expectations with each game, because and I'm not saying Final Fantasy 5 is a bad game either, but
yeah,
it's not what I was expecting or looking for like in a Final Fantasy game because the
right.
ones that I played, are kind of like more dramatic and
Well, that's a good point because,
so
and I was kind of
yes.
thinking of about this too. Like, there's a difference between being disappointed and being in a bad game, right? And
Mhm.
I think a lot of times we as fans, right, will mix those two up and say a game's bad when it's not really a bad game. It's just a big disappointment. And I think you see this a lot with the Final Fantasy games where, it'll get like it's an 8.5 out of 10 game, right? An 8.5 out of 10 is a pretty good game, right? And if it was a game that you had never heard of and that you just maybe spent 20 or $25 on, you might actually be very fond of it, right?
Mhm.
Like be like, oh, like this was actually a surprising game, which is kind of where this question is going. But it's
Yeah.
it was a surprising game. Like I think positively of this, right? But
Yep.
the fact that it has, like, for example, Final Fantasy written on it, you just expect it to be a 9.8 out of 10 experience, right? So when it's
Mhm.
an 8.5, you feel really disappointed. Whereas,
Yeah, you
whereas
can.
yeah,
You
whereas
can. Yeah.
somebody that has never played a Final Fantasy before, maybe that's their first game, they'll go play it and they have a different experience like you might have with a game you've never heard of before, where you pick it up, oh, well, let's check this out. And you're like, wow, this kind of surprised me. I actually kind of liked it. You're a little bit more forgiving of some of the rough edges when you don't have, this whole another catalog of some of the best games ever made,
Right.
to compare it against. So it's an
Yeah, it's those
interesting,
expectations. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting difference.
Yeah,
So,
and that Final Fantasy 8 taught me a lesson in that, like, because the leveling system is very different with the junctioning versus like Magicite and Materia that came the 2 games prior. So it kind of taught me that, like, yeah, they like to experiment, like at least with level progression at the least, right? But then also characters and like the general plot of the game.
yeah.
And so yeah, so then when other games that were kind of not as up to par as like the classics came around, that like kind of some people say starting with 12, but especially 13 and 15, it allowed me to look more at like, well, what do I like about this game and what do I not like about it, rather than looking at it and saying, well, this is what I don't like about it and that ruins it for
Hmm.
me, you
Yeah.
know? So I
Yeah,
think.
so you're able to be a little bit more nuanced with the way that you looked at games.
At least I think so, and I owe it to that disappointment that I had for Final Fantasy VIII. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that
I
said,
feel sorry
oh
for anyone who had Final Fantasy VIII as their first Final Fantasy. It's not a bad game, but the way the combat system and the stat systems and everything works is like not a good representation of how simple the systems to Final Fantasy usually are.
yeah,
Well, I mean, in
Mm.
many ways, Final Fantasy VIII, if that was your first Final Fantasy and you enjoyed it, that's like the best way, I think, because odds are there's going to be other games out there that you like even more or that you like at least equally as much. And I'm not trying to knock on eight. I like eight, but if that
that's
was your
true.
first game, like it's only uphill from there, right? At least in some circumstances.
Yeah,
Well,
Maybe
you
when you
said like 15.
15 or yeah, that's well, I think for me, like disappointment wise, I think 15 was a big letdown for me. I don't know why, but like all the way up to the day I bought the game, like I was convinced it was going to be a great game. I like it never even occurred to me that this would be a bad game because I thought like oh like they've been working on this game for years. Like they've
yeah,
like it's open world ish, so it's not going to be linear like 13 was. I mean, like they've had time to work on this. This
and
is going
they really pushed the marketing for that game up to
yeah,
release.
dude,
Like
I bought in.
Sakaguchi to endorse the game essentially, right, and be like, yeah, this is a good Final Fantasy game. You're all gonna love this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, they said they got his input on the game, right? Yeah, exactly. So I thought for sure it was going to be a phenomenal game, and then I played it, and I was still kind of in like nostalgia mode until I got to the point where it said "Avenge Jared," and I thought to myself, "Oh, this is a mission. I'm supposed to avenge Jared." And for the life of me, I could not remember who Jared was. Like I was like, "Who's this Jared guy?" Well, like, why am I avenging him? And like they made like such a big plot point out of it. And I thought to myself, like, oh my God, it's that old man that I didn't even meet. And
He
I'm
had one,
like,
he had like a couple lines, yeah.
I
yeah, then
almost guarantee you that there's probably going to be like an episode Iris
I
down the
doubt
line.
it. I doubt
I
it.
I think they were planning on making more season passes, and they probably scrapped that because of everyone's complaints about
Yeah,
missing part of the story. So they probably cut out stuff like Iris.
but they
And
they just came out with or they're coming out with that book and that's supposed to like tie everything up. I think they're wiping their hands clean at 15 and that's it. I mean
but yeah,
maybe.
they just took like a good portion of the team and put them in other places. And the
Yeah.
head guy is now making a paraplegic sports RPG that's in Olympus.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tabata. Yeah.
he left the company
Dude, I'm all
altogether.
in. I'm all in. I'm buying it day one. Like this is Tabata's new game, the paraplegic superheroes or whatever it is. That is such a preposterous idea. It might just be fabulous. I think I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna check it out because this like Tabata is just a wild man. Like I love him. He's just flat out honest. I saw one interview where like someone was going over like some of the feedback from fans and like one of the things that fans said is they really hate when there's like product placement in the games and then he was just like oh you're really not going to like this Tekken crossover. I was just like I can't believe he just said that. Like dude he's just so crazy. I love it. uh, he's a terrible storyteller but I'm just dude I just Square needs more people like Tabata, at least that honesty, you know. Katase's "please be excited" attitude just makes me want to throw up. So, anyways, I'm sorry. I feel like I interrupted. One game that did surprise me though, Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night.
Oh,
Eric just kept talking so much about this game, and I was just like, it looks okay. I'm not really into that style of game. And then I bought it on the PS4, and I played the crap out of it. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot. So thanks, Eric, for suggesting that game because I had a lot of fun with it. It was a really good game.
Is all right.
Yeah. So I'm. I don't know if they fixed the Switch version, but I played it on the PS4 and it's good. I liked it.
Damn fine game. Recommended to anyone who especially people who love Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That's a very good spiritual successor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good game. But was there any other thoughts that you all wanted to share? I feel like I interrupted a few times, so I apologize about that.
Well, like you were saying just a moment ago, sometimes games are disappointing because we get too overhyped,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game. But then there are cases where you get overhyped and also the game is not a good game. And Star Ocean 5 for PS4 is that game.
It's
So,
disappointing, and it actually is a bad game.
and it's actually like not a very good game, yeah.
I've
So that
there,
was my second one, yeah.
To
there,
be
there-
fair to us, they had a whole giant presentation and bringing Sakaguchi in for like just to give us a release date that they delayed 2 months.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
15, yeah. Yeah.
So like, you know, they're the ones hyping us. So
yeah. But
Mhm.
for Star Ocean 5, though, I think we
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit, and like I remember somebody in the comments was said like, I actually like Star Ocean 5. Like, you should check it out. It's only like $10, and I told him I was going to check it out. I fully intend to check it out. I've only watched other people play it, but
For
I've seen a lot of criticism of it, and
for 10
I don't.
bucks, it might be pretty okay.
Yeah,
Um, for 20 bucks or more, it's pretty tough sell. Okay, so
as
I don't want to
someone
go into it too much, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, as someone who likes Star Ocean 1 to 4 just fine. I mean, 3 and 4 are a little bit weaker in the series compared to 1 and 2.
I
But
like Star Ocean 4, so I'll just put that out there. Yeah, go ahead.
5 is pure garbage. As a game, the game's story and how it does its cinematography is probably some of the worst things I've
Terrible.
ever seen in a AAA JRPG. And it's really poor attempt to do an open world also, and awful character design. Just like, oh man, everything about that game is so bad. Like, I felt uneasy about it before buying it. I was like, it's still Star Ocean. I'll probably still like it to an extent, but no, like, it is so bad. Like, the game is so bad that like I had to get on the healer character because the AIs were just too stupid.
Yeah, and they
Or
also have all 7 of your characters in battle at the same time, all yelling out their attacks. And just imagine a Tails game, but double the party size,
yeah.
and also put like even more enemies on the screen. And
From what I was watching, like people like explain it, and like it seemed to me, anyways. Maybe y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to me like they started off with an idea, and then like it wasn't a very good idea, but then they didn't realize it was a bad idea until they were like 98% done, and it was just like, well, I don't want to start over, so we're just
yeah,
gonna carry home with this idea. I don't know.
yeah, the plot is basically because I beat the game, even though
Well,
just to say that I've beaten every Star Ocean game, I guess. But
yeah.
um,
It's a 10 to 12 hour game essentially.
yeah, especially if you do know none of the side quests, which are all awful, like go kill X number of monster or find X number of this rare material side quests. No, no story or character development in them
So
for the most part.
it's a great 1997 open world.
Yeah, you literally walk up to a quest board, right? And there's a list of quests, and there's a description of what is needed. You go get it, bring it back to the quest board, and then your reward is there, like magically from the quest board. You
Man,
just get it.
we're just really earning these dislikes here. I know
Oh, I'm sorry. It was
there's some massive Star Ocean 5 fan out there just like screaming at his computer screen right now, like
if you're that person, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is just not a good game. I'm sorry.
yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so anyways, I think what Stan was getting at, like he was saying, was sometimes there's games that are actually bad and disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, good questions. I feel like we've kind of hit this topic in one way or another a couple times, but it's always a enjoyable discussion. So, but yeah, we need some more Discord questions. So go into our Discord channel. There'll be a link in the description, and you can click on that, join our Discord server, go into podcast questions, ask some questions, and then next week we are going to talk about that. Pretty easy, huh? So, but anyways, I think that about wraps up this week's podcast.
I do have one small announcement.
Is it a small announcement? I don't know if it's a small announcement.
I'm just saying that I'm not going to be on the next 2 episodes of the podcast.
Okay.
I am getting married this weekend, so I'm going to be on a honeymoon out down in Tampa, out on a Carnival cruise out there, which is going to be a pretty fun time, and looking forward to it a lot. So you're not going to see me for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be out doing that, but you know, I'm probably the least favorite anyway, so
Nah.
No.
Are you gonna play Eyes on Me at your wedding?
No, I'm not that much of a dork.
No Final Fantasy VIII music?
No video game music.
When you go down the aisle, you're not gonna be the Dragon Quest theme?
No.
Okay.
I want her to actually marry me, so no. Not doing
That would be hilarious. But
Mm.
anyways. All right, we need to end this podcast. We're getting stupid. So we'll have another podcast, obviously next week, Monday. Stream 8 p.m. Eastern, roughly around that time. We try to be pretty consistent. But other than that, we will see you all next week. So take it easy, guys.
Take care.
See you later.